feels good. Oh, that
So
feels
they
good.
do parts
All right, here we go.
reattach.
So, seed starting here. So this is the style of tray that I like to use. I like uniformity. Having a bunch of different sizes, different shapes and colors and all this other stuff kind of makes life confusing and frustrating for me. So I like to get uniformity where I can, but sometimes I have to go with a mixed lot of things. Depends on how much money I think I want to spend on this. So the advantages of starts, there's more time to prepare your garden beds. So if your garden isn't ready, but it's good, you don't, I guess time to seed doesn't mesh with your garden isn't ready, you can still get your plants going and getting them up to size before they need to go out in the garden. Protection from slugs, snails, and pill bugs. Those are the three that usually try to eat my little plants as they're first coming out. That's one way to get above it. In fact, I do my peas that way because every other year they almost killed them off or stunted them so much they really struggle. But the years that I put them in starts, even I did them just real tiny at first because I had a real tiny little seed tray, and they were still struggling. So I got them up to about 4 or 5 inches, and they seemed to do, the slugs couldn't attack them too much, and I have some other techniques too for keeping the slugs at bay for them as well. So plants grow faster protected in the greenhouse, so when they're don't have the wind and the cold temperatures, they're going to grow a lot faster. Also, only the strongest plants can be used in the garden, so if you have a bunch of little ones that are kind of scrawny, or just maybe like 10% of them don't look like they're worth a whole lot, you don't have to set those out. You can just make sure you seed more than you need, like 10% more, and then you take the healthiest, nicest looking plants and you set those in your garden. And you fill up a full bed as well. So, your space is allotted, you don't have to have a missing one because the seeds didn't come up, things like that. So, this comment there as well. And then plants are far ahead of direct sow plants most of the time because you're in the head start. So when the time comes to be planting outside, you already have plants that are already up that you can set out there. So there's 2 different ways. You have soil blocks and cell trays. So I haven't yet to get into soil blocks as yet. I'm not totally convinced that that's the way to go, but there's definitely a lot of advantages. And I'll talk about what some of those advantages are. So this is what a soil block is. And they basically don't have a pot. It's just soil that's in a block that's been pressed, and you put your seed in there and it grows up right in that soil block, just sitting on a little tray.
And that's what you buy in the store, the seed blocks?
No, you don't actually, you just use like a seed starting mix, and you make it wet, and then you have to have some way to compact it and press it to get the right shape.
So that's what that white thing over there is? You use that? That white tray?
Not really, but that's, I don't know, you need some way to get it out easily. So that's what this thing is here.
Oh.
So this gentleman here, this isn't me, by the way. This is someone else that has one and is using it. So he has a wet seed starting mix that you mix water with, so it gets pretty wet, and you can pack it together, kind of like making mud pies. And so then he uses this press here to push it down in there and advance it. So the little squares, 4 of them all gang together, and he presses it really hard in there and then pulls it out. And then there's a little kind of a spring-loaded piece of metal that goes down and then presses little squares. So there was a hole. This was all filled with it, and then there's a little piece of metal that comes down to the metal and pushes that out. So he basically presses out these little pops in here. And then these have these little plastic divots in here that make a little hole to put your seed in. So it automatically, has holes in there already made for you, don't have to poke them later. And then you can also replace these with a little square. There's different sizes of these. So these are the three standard sizes for soil block makers that you will find. So there's a 3/4 inch one, which is these little guys here. And then there's a 2-inch one, which is the middle size. And then there's a 4-inch, 4x4.
So why would you have such a small one? I mean, what's the point of that?
So if you want to, for things that take a long time to grow and get big, like celery or something like that, or basil, something where you don't have a lot of space in your greenhouse or something like that, and you could get these up to size in smaller blocks, and then move them up to larger blocks. So it does take a little bit more time to do that, to the bigger ones, but it depends on how much space you have, or if you want to put a heat mat underneath them. You don't have to have 5 trays, you can have just one and have all your little ones in there. And then that way they will germinate a little bit faster, they get a little bit more heat. You don't have as much soil to heat up. So.
Can they stay compacted like that?
They do.
Water and everything?
Yeah, because if it's mainly made out of peat moss, and peat moss has a lot of little tiny strands, and it kind of it almost like a gelatin almost when you work with the stuff when it's wet. So they actually do hold together quite nicely. So this is what the 2 different sizes here. Actually, sorry, this is the 3/4 inch one. So it's got 20 of them in here, those squares, and then it's got the divot maker. So that's what that one kind of looks like there. And this is the 2-inch one. It's a little bit dark here, but there's little squares that you can put in there to receive. They're 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch squares, and that means you can move up the little guys, the micros, into the minis. There's micro minis, and then there's just the 4-inch. We didn't seem to really have a name for those. So then this is the 4-inch soil block maker. So instead of a 4-inch pot or a 3.5 inch, which generally you see these at about they're about 3.5 inches. That's kind of the equivalent for this one here, for bigger things that you want to grow up. So if you want to do like tomatoes in those, or peppers and things like that, basil, the bigger plants, or even the cucumbers, you do the bigger ones, squash, things like that. They like to have a little bit more room. So soil block advantages, so these are some that the advocates say here. So no cell trays needed, so you don't need little pots like this, and you never run out of those because you're not using them. All you need is just a flat here, or some kind of tray to put the soil blocks in, and people will use plywood, and they use all kinds of different things that you can put these into. Less to clean, so once you're done transplanting out, there's just one little tray to clean, and you don't have a bunch of little pots to maybe wash out. You don't need to collect and carry back from the garden, so you don't have a bunch of these stacked up that you have to then carry back from the garden. Transplanting is faster because you don't have to extract them out of there, and then you don't have to collect them once you're done, get them out of there, so it can speed up the process. Plants don't get root bound as much because it's what's called air pruning, because the roots go to the edge of the soil block and then they hit air, and they tend to just stop growing, and they don't start running around. Root bound means that the roots start spinning around in a circle around the edge of the pot, and that's usually not terribly good for the plant. They have a hard time coming out of that and actually growing straight out. It takes them a little bit of time before they learn that there's more soil and they start to go out again. So not having that problem is a benefit. And then less transplant shock from having roots that are exposed inside the pot, and they're nice, they're happy inside the pot, but once you jerk them out, then they're, not they're exposed to air, but they're a foreign substance, foreign soil that they're now in that they're right up against, rather than inside a nice soil block, which, they're not trying to go out in there. So anyway, that's what I'm told. They have most transplant shop. It is that do that. So then the other idea here is seed starting using tray inserts. So these guys, this would be the other way to do it. And so there's different sizes here. The home garden style is using these 72 cells per flat. That's the normal home garden size. There's ones that usually are one complete tray, that they aren't separate like this. They're in a whole 2 wide by 12, well, depends on what it is. Anyway, they're all just in one piece, basically, with all little holes in there. And a lot of market gardeners use what's called a 128, means there's 128 cells in there, so they're a little bit smaller in the 72s. And there's, 280 cell ones as well that are even smaller, and all different sizes you can get. But these are the most accessible, and you can get the plants a little bigger in there, so a little more soil. Let's see here. Oh, I want to mention here, so a couple different styles here. Let's see if they have those real here. Easy.
Dick's got them. I think Dick's got them.
No, that's his one.
There's two, they're hiding. That's what it is. Okay. So these are from Bootstrap Farmer, and they create some very high quality little trays and other gardening supplies. So these quite a bit heavier plastic. These are nice polypropylene. These are the standard ones you get, and these crush them. They're fairly thin. Now, I'm not going to say one's necessarily better than the other, because my personal preference is actually the thinner ones, because it's actually easier to get the plants out. You have just a little bit of, you don't have to crush it, just a little bit of pressure on the back, but it does give you that option where these do not. These have no flexibility. So it works well for things that you can grab the stem and jerk them out. Most, certain plants that works fine. For some of the delicate stuff, I'm not convinced that it's, you're spending more time trying to extract, using some kind of tool or trying to, the only thing I found is to do kind of a shaking motion where you kind of propel it, kind of get them to jump out of there and fall on the ground, which usually doesn't hurt them. I haven't had too much trouble with them actually breaking the plant, but it works to get them out of there.
It loosens up the root. It loosens
Yeah,
up the root.
which isn't bad. Use a little bit of soil process, so not, totally convinced, that these are a better product. You can see the price difference there. So 50 cents for one of these as compared to about 15 cents for the cheaper ones. And I've actually had these for, 4 years. And haven't needed to replace them yet. They hold up nicely, and as long as you aren't rough with them and smash and crush and step on them, they seem to hold up fairly well. So Amazon seems to be the best source for those, for the ones interested. These here. And there's different manufacturers. This just happens to be one that I got in the previous past. I think that's what these guys are here. They kind of have more of a square bottom to them. Seed starting flats. Now, one thing that I have found that I would recommend is to get the stronger trays, because these guys here, they're the ones that you get normally are weigh about 5 ounces. So you can tell the quality by weighing them. Put them on a scale. These weigh about 5 ounces, and you actually sometimes will see that listed on a website or in the stores on the packaging. And sometimes it's out of 5 ounces. They're super heavy duty. Don't be fooled by super heavy duty or extra strong, because they're all about the same. So So usually you can tell just by looking at it, it usually has a wider strip in the middle than the other ones. That these don't have a wider strip in the middle, have more structure to them, and a little bit deeper grooves. But the plastic is probably, I don't know if it's twice, but these weigh about 3 times as much. You can see the ounces there. These are 15 ounces as opposed to 5. You're supposed to hold about 50 pounds. And you can hold about 50-pound, block of cement block or rock or something in here, and it won't collapse on you. The plastic, I don't know the plastic of these. I haven't been able to figure out what type of plastic they use, but this is the polypropylene, which is what you find in some of the higher quality nursery pots. There's polystyrene, which is a little more flexible and more prone to cracking. And some of your more thicker, more rubbery, almost feeling pots. You can kind of feel what this looks like. It has a different feel to it, more rubbery feel to it. That's usually the polypropylene plastic, which is a little more durable. Cell tray advantages. So instead of, as opposed to soil blocks, why would you want to use a cell tray? So you don't need peat moss, and that was the main part that it's like, I don't want to have to go buy peat moss every year because I use a lot of seed starting mix, and I just want to be able to use my compost and maybe a little soil mixed in with it. You can just use forest soil for many years and mix that in with compost and different things. I didn't have to buy anything. But you do soil blocks, you can't get away with that. It does not work without peat moss that I couldn't figure out. I tried them, making blocks, and as soon as you water them, they just kind of disintegrate. So that's one reason why you don't want to have to be dependent. It's a dependent seed. You have to buy that every year. But you can't, it's pretty hard to make it. I was thinking, well, we got moss. I wonder if I could grind up the moss and maybe use it as an alternative. I wanted to do that, but anyway, faster to seed, large quantities. I've heard that from some market gardeners who have been doing soil blocks and they get tired of making them, because it does take a long time to sit there and press them out. And so you got, 4. Well, there's 6 here, and you can fill that up pretty quick. So when you're doing large quantities, it's going to take you longer to make soil blocks than it is to use the seed trays. So you got lower cost for small numbers. So like I said, these guys are pretty cheap for $17. You can get 10 trays worth. And that's probably about as much as most people need. Which you really don't need. You find that, and I probably do about 3 times that. But still fairly low cost introductory. So then less mess. You don't have to deal with getting all wet and getting all the right consistency and basically playing in mud. This is, you can put the stuff in, the soil in there dry, and then when you've got all nicely clean, you got all your seeds in there, then you can add some water and soak it up, and it's all very neat and tidy and less mess. And it can, having them inside of a plastic container, they're going to dry out a little, not as fast. So the soil blocks are going to dry out a little faster. You got airflow all around the soil, and then they're going to dry out. Germination times at different temperatures is something to think about where you put them. So this is a nice little diagram of different soil temperatures right here at the top. So you got 32 degrees, 41, 50 degrees, 59, 68, 77, going up to 104. And then here's your list of plants that you want to grow here. You can find these on the internet. Or if you need this, I can print one out for you perhaps. So if we look like at onions, you look at, this is how many days it's going to take to germinate an onion at 32 degrees. 136 days. So it's probably not the temperature you want to germinate an onion at. Now this is soil temperature, so unless your ground is, that would be frozen ground. So that's not necessarily, it's 32 degrees outside. you actually have to measure the soil temperature, and you can get little probe thermometer. I think they have them like at Walmart or something like that. I don't know, maybe $5 or $6. So not terribly expensive. You just want to find a range on the dial that is, not for cooking. Well, the lower range, something where it's going to show 40, maybe 35 or 40 degrees, somewhere probably above freezing. It's probably not going to go. Maybe it starts at 40 or something, but you want to get it so you can know, hey, my soil is 45 degrees. I want to be able to measure that rather than having a pin at the bottom and you don't know if it starts at 150 or just 100 degrees or something like that. So just kind of pay attention.
I have one of the neatest little things I ever bought. And the dial will tell you what will germinate at 45 or 50 or gardening for dummies.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like a digital-
Is that called the germination chart? Is that what
Yeah,
it's
all
called?
that. It's basically a temperature chart here. So anyway, they have kind of like an optimum. There's a certain point for certain seeds that any higher temperature and then the germination rate, or they don't germinate as fast, and you actually sometimes you lose seeds. They don't germinate at all. Like the percent of germination, like 8% germination, sometimes it'll go down to 50 if you get it too hot. And I noticed that with some of the spinach and the onions are real critical on that. So most of the time you're not going to have it super hot, but there is ways to boost that soil temperature, like a heat mat or something like that. I also use what's called the germination chamber. It's just basically an old freezer with a heating element in the bottom, so I can get it up to a particular temperature, and I can get things to germinate within a few days, depending on what they are.
So, what is the numbers down each one of those
These,
things?
that's days. So it's the days that are listed here.
As to how long it takes to germinate?
Yeah, so you look at like peas, 6 days at 77 degrees, or 9 days at 59 degrees.
Oh, wow, okay, I see.
So just by jumping up another 10 degrees, you can really speed up the
Where
process.
can we get this chart?
Just on the
There's
end,
tons of them online.
by that term, germination times at different temperatures.
Okay,
Search for
type that
that.
in.
Yeah, search for that.
That's kind of neat.
That allows you to be able to pull that up there. I'll let you guys take that down if you want. But anyway, so that's just a note there to mention that. That's one of the other reasons to start. I usually germinate my seeds in the house. Because that gives you your warmth at a consistent, even into the night, where it's going to be a lot warmer than a lot of times in the greenhouse at night. So, and this year I've been doing a germination chamber to get a little place where they're super warm, up to 85 degrees. They germinate really quick that way. Okay, so moving on here, testing for germination. This is sometimes a good idea for old seeds before you spend the time and effort to think, well, I can put maybe 2 or 3, but if only 20% of them are going to germinate because they're old seeds, it's kind of nice to know ahead of time. And sometimes I remember to do it, sometimes I don't, but this is how you do it. You take 10 seeds, you put them in a wet paper towel or a napkin or something like that on both sides, so you sandwich the seeds in between, and then you slip it in a plastic bag and you put it on top of your refrigerator or some one place up high out of the way, and keep checking on them. After about 3 or 4 days, you keep checking on them, look for germination. And when most of them look like they've germinated and are going to, then you count them up and you say, okay, well, I have 2 that didn't germinate out of the 10. That means you got 80% germination rate. So that's a fairly easy way to do that. Pre-soaking seeds. Most of the time I don't do this just because it's the seeds that I would normally do that. I'm usually planting out in the garden, and I don't usually know how long or how many I need. I want to sit there and count them all out because that's usually a couple hundred seeds or more. So I usually don't do that, but if you want to get the germination time even faster, this is something that you could do if you meticulously count out how many seeds you're gonna need and you don't do too many extra or too many short, because if you run out of seeds, then you got another so much part of your bed that then you have to use dry seeds. So anyway, just something to think about. Soak them for about 12 to 24 hours in warm water. Tiny seeds, another reason not to do tiny seeds, because they get sticky, they're a mess. They all stick together in the water. Dry seeds are so much nicer to use to try to work with. So that's just one idea out there, though. Just need to be aware of it. Which plants not to start as transplants. I've had pretty good success with pretty much everything except for like carrots are the ones that people recommend don't do, and parsnips. Those two are about the only ones that I've found that you shouldn't start as a transplant. Ways, methods to sow the seeds. This is a little more expensive method, but if you're doing a whole bunch, this can speed up the process. It's got a little motor in there, it's battery operated, and there's a little rheostat to control the vibration speed. It's a little vibrator in there. And you put all your seed in the little canal here, it's like they show here, and then it slowly dumps those seeds off the end at a certain rate that you can adjust. And you can just quickly go along there and, get down to 1 or 2 seeds fairly easily. So this is what commercially you can use to do that with. And what's this white seed here? You may say, what in the world are they trying to plant that is white? Well, these are called pelleted seeds, and they, I can't remember, I think it's like a clay or something they pack on. I'm not quite sure the material, but anyway, they coat it into a nice little ball, and carrot seeds are very nice to do that way. You can pick it up and put it in there, and you get the nice spacing in there. So that's something to look at if you're really struggling with carrot seeds or lettuce or something like that. Go for something like Johnny's seeds or something like that, where they have pelleted available, and that may help you out a little bit. It's a little more expensive, of course, to be processed, but that can be a lot easier to work with. And then the other method is to use a seed packet and put a crease in one end there, and then use your little finger to tap. And to get your tapping, that's your vibrator there, and it gets down there, and you can get a little practice, you can get those seeds dropping out of there fairly quickly if you got a lot. And it works well for carrots or lettuce or something fairly small. Just trying to, your fingers usually aren't small enough for tweezers or work, but they're slow. And then the other method for bigger seeds, just use your fingers. That's the low cost method. Seed starting mix. So most of your seed starting mix is going to have these items in there with a little bit of variation. So peat moss, perlite, and a little bit of lime. It's pretty basic. They just make sure that it's screened so it's a little bit finer. I've got some that's like sand in there. I tried my onions in it and they didn't do well at all. I'm not sure what was up with that. I thought I was trying to get rid of disease in there by getting a pre-bought mix, and I didn't really have any terrible good luck with it. But anyway, that's pretty much what you get. Here's an alternate vermiculite instead of perlite in there. That's a little bit finer. So, for something that doesn't have this big of chunks in there, for some of the finer seeds, may be beneficial, but it's just another option there. But that's the 3 basic things that are in there. And then introduce you to this gentleman here. I'd like to show you guys someone in the industry that's good to follow and learn from. Learned a lot from him. He's over in Maine, and so he's a market gardener. He has about 1.5 acres, I think, of production in greenhouses, and does production all year round. He's got quite a few books out. So he's got 4 Season Farm. That's a picture of his farm there in Maine. So he's got lots of little hoops in there, row covers, and different size greenhouses in there. And he's got a couple books out that have been around since the 70s or 80s. He's been around for quite a while. He's one of the organic gardeners that have pioneered the industry. So he's something to look at. Maybe look at the library for some of his books. And a lot of good information in there about building greenhouses and He's one of the proponents of soil blocks, so you can learn all about soil blocks from him and things like that. And this is his mix. So, same
This
type of
is for soil.
things. Yeah, but you can use it for anything. You can use it in these as well. So it's specific to that, but there's only all have about the same thing, except, peat moss always has to be there. And then he does screen compost in about 50-50 ratio between that and the compost and the peat moss. So that extends, makes it a little bit cheaper if you make your own compost. And then he has about 3 gallons of perlite. That's to give a little bit of air space in there, give space for the roots to get some air so it doesn't get too much water soaked in there. And then 1 gallon of screen topsoil. As far as I know, he hasn't said why that's in there, but from my other experience and knowledge from other people, that's to kind of inoculate the soil with good bacteria and fungus. So that's probably why he puts it in there. It's also a good thing, just it's kind of using the good to outcompete the bad. And then rock dust in there. So rock dust is kind of a general term for powdered rock. And you can get that in a bag, or you can go to a rock quarry and say, hey, I have some 3/4 minus or tailings. That's what I've done, and I was able to, I don't know, get maybe 500 or 600 pounds of just some of the fines. And that has a lot of good minerals. Basically, you're adding minerals to your soil in a form that breaks down fairly quickly. Actually, the best is basalt, which is your normal gravel type. But there's other types as well, granite and stuff like that, rock dust that you can get. And then lime, that's also in those other mixes as well. And green sand, so he likes to add a little bit of nutrients in there. So green sand is your potassium source, and then you got a rock phosphate, and then a nitrogen source is blood meal there. So those are some extra things that are optional, but can get the plants, when they start to get a little larger, they're going to need some of those nutrients. And this is my mix, my modified mix. So it's pretty much very similar, except you'll notice perlite's missing because that's something I have to go buy. And I'm not into going buying things all the time, and they seem to do fine without. So one less thing to buy on all four. Rock dust I have available for free, pretty much, and lime, fairly inexpensive. Usually I get a 50-pound bag at some of the farm supply stores. It's usually like, I think it's roughly around $7 or something like that for 50 pounds, so it goes a long way. It's pretty cheap. So don't buy the little bags in the store. You probably pay $10 or something for just a little bag. And then I also like to put in some powdered ash and char in there. So whatever comes out of my wood stove after burning, I grind it up, get some of the bigger chunks of char, like charcoal basically. It's the black stuff that's in there, that's good. So that just adds minerals, and the char in there kind of creates a living place for bacteria to grow and absorbs some of the nutrients and holds it there so that it doesn't to be leaching out when you water it quite so much. So anyway, that's kind of what I use. And then when to transplant, about 6 weeks after sowing. That's the general thing. So you think, well, okay, the last frost date, that's when I want to set out these plants, such as, well, you can actually do it a couple weeks before the last frost date for some of your broccoli and kale and things like that, some of the colder ones in the onions, but usually it's May 1st is my date that I usually put things out. The weather seems to be nice, and it's easy to work out there in the garden. And, there's usually enough time for you to continue growing. So about 6 weeks before that is a good time to start. So March 15, usually, as you mentioned, March 17, somewhere in there is a good date to shoot for every year to get the majority of the stuff planted or sowed. And then the exceptions, You want to start your peppers and your onions, and even the spinach can go out a little earlier. So, and they seem to, mine look like they're ready to go out. I'm about ready to set them out in the garden here. I think they'll do fine out there with this weather. It isn't, it's can freeze, but it's, it won't, unless it dips down several degrees below freezing, they're not gonna suffer. They're pretty hardy.
What about tomatoes?
Tomatoes, 15th of March is usually when I start them.
The start of it.
Because they grow fast, so you'll get plants that big by the 1st of May. So it'll be maybe a foot and a half to 2 feet high. Yeah.
Something people should know, that tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants will not set fruit when they blossom unless it's above 50 degrees.
Yep.
So I usually don't plant my tomatoes till like the 15th of May. Of course, that fluctuates, out here,
Weather is.
But they will not set fruit if it's below 50 at night. So that's tough out here. I'm from Wisconsin, and we have no problems with the 15th of May, but out here, you don't look at 50 degrees till
Yeah, I think that's
July.
Is that the
I think
night
July,
temperature?
August, until you get above 50 at night, and that's
Yeah.
tough. That's tough. Anyway, for me, I live up in Lacombe. It's
Yeah.
tough trying to get those plants to be big, but there's no fruit. It's just too cold at night. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that-
Is there something to, say you start these indoors in your greenhouse, whatever, and you're gonna transplant them out in the garden, does it make sense to take them out and set them like in the garden where you're gonna plant them during, once the weather starts, maybe you get a hot day, like you've had, just to kind of acclimate them?
Yep.
Take them, sit them out, and then bring them back in?
So there's something called hardening off.
Yep.
Harden them up. I did that for the first couple of years because I was told to, and then I got lazy and I said, well, I'll give it a try without. I said, oh, well, I'll just set them out there. And they did perfectly fine. I had no trouble. And I think the idea is that, well, hey, they're already going, if you have them in a greenhouse outside, they're already getting fairly low temperatures at night. They're getting pretty hot, so I think they're pretty well acclimated. I think if you have like a commercial greenhouse, where the temperature is probably held fairly consistent and perfect and lovely in there, then yeah, you do need to harden them off. And commercially, they usually do that with the vegetable plants and things like that. They harden them off for you. I don't know exactly the process. They go through, maybe open up the doors or something like
Let
that.
the wind blow through.
Something, yeah, just to give them a little bit more strength so they don't die. And sometimes you get a little bit of white scalding on some of the plants if they weren't, it sets it back a little bit, but I'm not sure it's worth my time and effort to. Because basically the process is, I'll go through it real quickly, you want to set them out there for about an hour, midday, maybe a half hour at first, and then every day you kind of make it a little bit longer, and then you bring them back in for a little, so basically they're exposed to, the sun for a short period of time until you finally get them out there, where they can handle all the extremes, sun and wind and cold and things like that. That's way too much work for me. I can't handle all that. Taking them all out of the greenhouse, setting them out for, setting my alarm, get them out there, then take them all back in. I don't have time for that, so I just skip it. And it doesn't seem to harm most of them. Maybe the cucumbers or squash or something like that, maybe a little bit of scalding on them at first, but anyway. So, mentioned eggplant, that would be another exception, I think, because those take quite a while to germinate. They're about equal with peppers, I believe. That sound right?
I think so. I can't remember right now.
They
but
take a while.
quite a while.
Yeah, they're slow growing is what my experience. And I didn't have good luck with them last year. I keep trying, but so far I'm not super pleased with what I've gotten out of them. Root starts to a larger pot, potting up. So that's a terminal here, just potting it up to a bigger pot. So tomatoes, peppers, about 2 to 3 weeks after, which is usually about that tall, or 4 or 5 inches, somewhere like that. And these little guys, I usually start with these little guys because, as I mentioned, at night, they're not liking those cold temperatures in the greenhouse, so I want to carry I have 2 trays. So I can easily carry those 2 trays in, but if I have 75 of these guys, I'm not doing that at night. I'm sorry, but no room and it'd be too much work. So until and actually that's kind of variable 2 to 3 weeks, because if the temperatures still are too cold, 40 degrees, below 40 degrees, you don't really want them out. They're going to get stunted out there. They get cold night temperatures, 40 degrees, so they come in. And same thing with the peppers, they come in at night. And the cucumbers and squash I'm doing as well. And I'm not positive that they don't like the frost. I know they don't like the super cold temperatures, but I think they could probably handle a little bit more. But since it's not that much more work, a couple more trays to bring in at night. They're coming in too, because they are more sensitive. Just in case we get a real cold night, 29 degrees or 30 degrees, you never know. It can happen. We may get colder weather in another couple of weeks, or that may be a problem. So I don't want them to freeze and I lose them. Pot up basil about 4 weeks. Basil is very slow growing. It's kind of an herb. Herbs are really slow growing. So about 4 weeks after seeding, I usually put them in a bigger pot. So tomatoes go in these for me, at least, because that's the final size that I like to get them. A nice big pot, give them extra room. Peppers seem to handle this size quite nicely, 3.5 inch. And cucumbers and squash, I put them this size here. They seem to do fine in that size. All my vegetables, broccoli, kale, all get this size all the way up to transplant. 6 weeks in this, they do fine. Now, if you have space, you're welcome to put them in here. These 3.5 inch, or if that's what you have available, that's fine. I did that for many years and started doing that. So, Daffodil disease, that's something to think about. So that happens when there is, it's a fungal disease, white mold on the surface of your soil, things like that. You'll see ways to prevent it. So it's basically, it's a fungal attack that causes the plant to basically shrink up at a certain point and the nutrients can't get up there and it usually falls over and dies, as in this picture here. Little narrow part, that's what you'll see there. Shrinks up and then it kind of falls over and dies, and that's your indication that you have damping off. So the reasons for that is usually poor air circulation, lack of sun. Yeah.
Well, this is what I found out, I read somewhere, my greenhouse is just a 6x8.
Yep.
But I turn the fan on at low speed. It just comes on, once my plants are up and I have no dampening off problems at all, but like you say, it's air circulation.
Yeah.
I think a guy over, I don't know the Combs, I think the guy is over on, Baptist Church or somewhere where he taught master gardening at the college. He says, always have a fan. In his big greenhouse, he has a big box fan.
Okay.
You gotta have air circulating. No problem if it's in the greenhouse. I'm about to just share that with you. So just a little fan, just don't take much.
Direct sunlight, so ultraviolet rays, I think will kill the fungus on the surface of the soil pretty easily, so that would be another thing. If they're in a house, with just grow lights, you may not probably not getting that ultraviolet light to help that. And then these are things to help it. Low humidity is also good, so if you get too high of humidity, it can cause that disease as well. Not sure about well-washed pots. I'm a little skeptical whether or not, well, it depends on if you got a sterile seed mix you're buying in the store that just has peat moss and perlite, then it's fairly sterile, and you're probably not going to have any fungus in there, but you can still get it, it still comes through the air, and you're doing, I got compost, so a clean pot, I'm not convinced, but people keep saying that, so I don't know. I haven't mentioned that here. So ways to prevent it, another, powdered cinnamon, that's one thing, it's kind of an antifungal. You can try it if everything else fails. And the air circulation and the sunlight and the humidity aren't doing it for you, you can always get a little high, another level up. And then, what I've actually done, since I've had some issues with that, with, high humidity in my germination chamber, it really grows, the fungus really grows in there fast. So I just did a little bit of spray bottle of hydrogen peroxide, and that seems to, that kills it. It just-
What's the ratio, 3%, and how do you mix it, what, a teaspoon to a cup, or what's your
I do
mixture?
full strength at 3%.
Okay?
Right out of the bottle,
I know hydrogen
3%.
peroxide is good.
And just spray it on the surface of the soil, just a miss. It doesn't take much. A couple, about twice as applications, that's all you need. You can even do it before the seeds come up. And just spray your soil down so it's got that on the surface, and that takes care of the fungus.
Even after they come up, it would
Yeah,
help.
I was very skeptical about that. I was like, that's supposed to destroy cells.
Yeah.
Oxidate the cells is what it does. Doesn't seem to affect the plants much. Not enough, it's too much of a benefit.
Yeah, don't overdo it,
Yeah, don't overdo it. Don't drain the plants, but you see people do it and, it can definitely help. So anyway, that's a quick fix that I found out this year, and I've been impressed. It really kills it there. So everything has a time. So Ecclesiastes says everything has its time. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven,
So I have to thin it
a
down.
time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck what is planted. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding. And that's what I hope I'm presenting here tonight, is give a little bit of wisdom and understanding of how things work and how you can manipulate things in order to give you a good result. So, anyway, we can do a little bit of seed starting for those that can stick around. It is getting a little bit late here, so apologies for always having too much material and not enough time. Maybe next time I'll just do one presentation. That's Francis.
Wendy and I are wondering, when is Baldwin Farms Nursery going to open?
It actually opened and closed. Last year I tried it, and I found out real quick, and Elliot Coleman was actually mentioning this, that he makes about $6 an hour doing what he's doing, for all the hours that he puts in. So, well, I can make that working at McDonald's way more. So you have to have a
Yeah,
bar
minimum
for
wage
it.
is like $10.75 or something now, so.
Yeah, because that was several years ago when you mentioned that. Yeah.
Do you have to use any fertilizer on these things, soil?
Oh, that's a good comment, yeah. So do you have to add fertilizer? Well, not much. Once they get up to be a little bit bigger, what they call their true leaves, there's cotyledon, which is the first leaves that come up. Those aren't the true leaves, they're usually kind of round and flat, and they're not very descriptive, they don't look like the final leaves, but once the true leaves start coming out, usually have a little curl or shape to them that you can recognize, then it's good to add just a little bit of fertilizer to them. An organic fertilizer, I would recommend.
Your fish fertilizer, some of that's organic, I use.
Yeah. That'd be fairly mild, and usually dilute it down with water. As you're watering, then mix a little bit in, a couple tablespoons in with your fish fertilizer or something like that. Yeah.
I'd like to add that I have a real hard time transplanting watermelons or musmelons.
Oh,
They
okay.
do not like their roots disturbed.
Okay.
So I try to use gallon containers
Yep.
and only transplant them once into the garden. But
Yeah.
they are, I don't know what it is, they do not like their roots disturbed, and so I try to
Okay.
do something big enough so the soil's around it and I'm not disturbing the roots.
Yeah.
That's what I found out, trying to
Okay.
get a jump on things.
Yeah.
Watermelon and musmelons are out there.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, these are the different sizes here. You can see, just take a look at these. We'll have to take a look at these plants and we have a little bit of time to do a little planting. I've got some seeds here. You want to see a little bit of process. We'll have some of my seed starting mix. Want to do some of that. I have some